All right, everyone. My name is Lance Ash, and sitting beside me on the sofa is my wife, Bonnie,
Hi.
and we are getting an early start to our weekend. Normally, we record this show.
Friday night, Saturday night?
Well, today is Friday, but it's only like 3 in the afternoon. Normally, we start around 8, 9, 10, sometimes in the middle of the night. But we decided to go ahead and get the week. I have had a hard time sleeping this morning, so I decided let's just go ahead and get the weekend started. Bonnie's sleep schedule has slowly started to mimic mine.
It's horrible. I don't know how you do it. I'm up all night and then I sleep during the day. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't think I'm ever going to go back to normal.
It's hard to change your sleep schedule. I know. Many years ago, Bonnie had a job, and she wasn't here in the afternoons when the kids get off the bus. And she wanted somebody waiting for them at the bus stop every day.
Oh, yeah.
So I had 2 alarm clocks in my room. One to wake up to go meet the kids, and one to get up to go to work. So basically, I would sleep 4 hours, alarm would go off, I'd go out to meet the kids, come back in, get them settled, go back to bed. Anyway, that was 20 years ago, and I have never been able to break that sleep cycle. I sleep roughly, on a good day, 4 hours, then get up, poot around, and go back to bed for 4 hours. But lately, I've been sleeping maybe 2 hours, maybe 3. And on the weekends, my first day off, I'm lucky if I sleep an hour and a half before getting up, because there's something about Friday that triggers a response in me. It's like, ooh, we should be having fun. And then so when the work week starts again, it takes me 2 days to get back into the groove. It's not until Wednesday morning that or Tuesday, Wednesday morning that I feel my sleep's back to normal. So anyway, how you feeling today, Bonnie?
I'm so grateful it's a week later and we have power.
Yes, a week ago,
Yep.
we were out of power.
It was horrible, but as horrible as it was, I'm looking at the news coverage of all these people in these cut-off communities. My God.
Well, when the hurricane hit us, all that hadn't happened yet, and so we thought we had it pretty bad. And then over the subsequent days, we began to find out just how terrible it was in North Carolina.
Yeah.
I was on the NPR day before yesterday on the way home. Had some guy who used to run the water department or something for some area near Asheville. And he said, we have 3 water treatment facilities. And he's talking about pipes that run here and there and backup pipes. He said all those pipes were washed away. He said, now, we can't go in and just fix those pipes because all the roads are washed away. So you can't drive heavy machinery in there to fix the pipes. So I don't know what those people are going to do.
I don't either. And this is just going to get worse. Climate change is a current and ongoing thing, and it is getting worse. And these communities will continue to be at risk.
Well, they ought to. I guess what they should do is send the army in with.
They have.
With just thousands of gallons of drinking water and food. Hold on a second. The valleys in mountains. What's the word I'm looking for? Make floods worse because the water runs down the mountain into these river valleys and fills them up quickly. Oh, some of that footage was horrible to see. People's we saw this couple. They were an old couple, like in their 70s. The flood's coming. The man just had enough time to grab 2 life jackets, one for him, one for his wife. They put the jackets on, and then they were swept away. She wound up in a tree. He wound up in a tree, but he smacked his face into the tree, and the whole left side of his face was black and blue. It was horrible. Anyway, when they found them each later clinging to the tree, two different trees.
So apparently they're running out of money very quickly for FEMA,
Oh.
and Congress isn't in session until after the election. And then it's a lame duck session after that.
Well, Biden
They
has.
need to call them back into session right now and allocate emergency funding.
Well, they don't really need to do that. Biden has executive authority, emergency powers. He can say, I'm confiscating this much money. I'm doing this and I'm doing that. I'm the president.
Rule by fiat really should not be the default. We should have a system that works, where the Democrats and the Republicans can come to compromise and pass legislation. As is, the Republicans are just obstructionists.
It's gotten to the point where they see their political adversaries as enemies, and not just enemies, but actively on the side of evil. And so we've got a situation where no matter what a Democrat does or says or proposes, they must oppose it, because it's from the mouth of Satan himself. And there's a little bit of that on the Democratic side, I have to say, because Republicans are, one of their philosophical foundational beliefs is that government's no good. We should do away with it and privatize everything.
What's the famous quote by Reagan?
Oh, yeah, listen to this. When Reagan was running for office, one of the most appealing messages that he said was encapsulated when he said, the worst words you can hear come out of somebody's mouth are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you. And they applauded and cheered this because they were sick and tired of government experts coming in and telling you how to do things and being taxed to pay for the government to do things that you felt that you could do on your own.
Yeah.
But now we've got a situation where we need the government.
These people are bootstrap types.
Yeah.
They say you can pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. There come any major catastrophe, like Florida's had 3 hurricanes in the last 18 months, or is it more? And they are out there with their hands out wanting donations. So much for the bootstraps. Gimme, gimme, gimme. And the funny thing is that most Republican states are recipient states. They're not what are called donor states. They aren't the ones that are contributing the lion's share to the Treasury. Instead, they're taking more out of the U.S. Treasury than they are putting back in with regard to federal taxes.
What state was it, I believe during the height of the COVID crisis, the governor said, we don't want any federal money. We're refusing to take this money that you're offering us.
I don't know.
Was it Oklahoma?
I don't know.
It was something like that.
We took tons of federal monies here in Georgia. Mind you, this is the state who will not take money to expand Medicare to the needy and the vulnerable. They refuse to accept that provision and allowance under the Affordable Care Act. But yet they gladly took every amount of federal money that was given out during the COVID crisis. And as a result, we ended up with a massive fucking surplus here in the state of Georgia. And we've been sitting on a surplus for a couple of years now. And Brian Kemp's been riding it like it's him. No, they had their coffers filled brimming because of COVID monies from the feds.
We on the left often talk about how the European nations, the social democrat, I don't know if it's social democrats or democratic social, one of the, we often talk about how much better life is in those countries. But the thing is, those countries, it's a balance. They've decided that there must be a balance between unfettered capitalism and all-consuming socialism, and that balance has to be constantly adjusted and maintained. And that's not something that Americans are used to. The idea that, well, we have to veer a little bit over here on this side sometimes, but veer over there sometimes. And it's a lot of work. I think part of the reason that that's more viable in those countries is because they have multi-party parliaments, where you have parties that are really,
Represent a variety of interest.
but they speak for the broad political spectrum. You have hard right, little less right, little more centrist. Then
Environmentalist.
right, green,
Yeah.
progressive,
Yeah.
hardcore communist.
So, a while back, I read an excellent article, which is still available online. It's by Russell Shorto, and he talks about having moved from the U.S. to the Netherlands. And he said, I'm living in the Netherlands, I've got this X status, etc. I'm paying taxes at the same rate as anybody else, a citizen of the Netherlands. He says, my tax rate is 52%, and before you gasp and go, my God, you're getting paid, you're paying half your salary, he goes, let me tell you what I get for that 50%. And he talks about a public transit system that works for everybody, that speedily moves people throughout the cities and the region. He talks about the fact that when he goes to school, his kids go to school, they get an allowance for their clothing, they get an allowance for school supplies. He talks about how they get a month of paid vacation. He talks about how they have health insurance for everyone. There is just one thing after another.
And college is free too, right?
I don't remember about the college specifically, but he just has this excellent essay. If you get a chance to read it, Russell Shorto,
Yeah.
short O, and it's wonderful because it explains how, yes, you pay a lot in taxes, but what you get far surpasses anything that you could begin to get on your own.
And they have rich people there. It's not like it's not like the rich people have been dragged down from their pedestal. There's still rich people there, and there's rich people who like living there.
What's interesting is the Netherlands also has the North Sea oil surplus.
Right.
They decided that they have this property offshore, and everyone in the country is going to benefit from it. And so you've got all these proceeds, and so instead of having to have this huge tax on the ultra wealthy, etc., everything ends up balancing out. And before you think, oh God, that would never happen here in the U.S., it actually does happen here in the U.S. Alaska has that. They have a program where the natural resources, everything that is taken from the state, people put back in money from the companies. And then every year, once or twice a year, Alaskan citizens get payouts from the state because these are natural resources that everybody own as a group. So they should all benefit from it.
Yeah. Something I was going to say about all this. I can't remember.
We had
now.
the vice presidential debate this week.
Yeah, and I didn't expect much, and I didn't get much, so that's fine. Though I'm tired of fireworks in our political discourse. Because really, it's like the difference between traditionally the difference between the parties was, we're going to lean a little bit more socialist, we're going to lean a little bit more capitalist, but now it's
Conservative.
We're going to take women's voting rights away and force them to have children, and we're going to, stop popular culture that we don't approve of. That's one of the things that bothers me about rock stars and movie stars that are Republicans. Don't you understand? If the Republicans had their way, you wouldn't be able to show
Censored.
titties in a movie, or
Talk about your one night stands on the radio. Yeah, the debate initially seemed to swing toward Vance. Vance went into it with a negative popularity rating. He came out looking normal, which is saying a lot for Vance because he really comes across as stilted and awkward. And so initially, the first 24 hours after the debate, it looked like that he had really began to turn the tide on the way that he was perceived and may have softened some policies. But over the next several days, what happened was they began to parse his words. And they noted one lie after another, after another, after another, and whitewashing history. He went on about how Trump peacefully handed over power. Trump never conceded. There was January 6th, and he continues with the election lie, the big lie.
Yeah.
There's nothing peaceful about that. These people are still going after anyone who opposes the Republican Party and who dare step out of line. This past week, it was reported that a Pennsylvania couple who had made an advertisement for Kamala Harris saying, "We're Republicans, but we're voting for Harris."
I saw that.
They were attacked by people. They got just inundated by these hate calls. And that's what you're dealing with. These people are nuts. They are crazy. They are like rabid dogs.
Yeah, they have nothing better to do. I mean, their whole identity is wrapped up in something that's just bullshit.
It really is a bunch of lies. Vance also completely stilted his own policy positions on abortion and women's rights, reproductive rights and access. And I'm trying to think if there was anything that he was really truthful about. He talked about, he attributed certain things to Harris that were instituted in law back in the 1980s with regard to immigration policies. He ended up trying to blame immigrants for a myriad of problems, including the housing shortage, when it's the investment groups that Vance was himself involved with that are buying up so many properties here in the U.S., causing a housing shortage and the rise in prices.
We saw on the news this morning that California is allowing cannabis dispensaries to start serving drinks and snacks and stuff. And
the Amsterdam Cannabis Cafe.
Right. Stephen Colbert, I guess he was the one, or Kimmel, said, like in Amsterdam, they have these little cafes. And it made me think of the Cheech and Chong movie where they go to Amsterdam to perform this show. And they're at this cafe, outdoor cafe, sitting at a table, and the running gag is that Chong is such a heavy drug user that nothing gets him high anymore, and it's like they're at this cafe the whole afternoon, and Cheech is just getting absolutely shit faced, so that he's hallucinating shit, and Chong is sitting there and he's like, hang on, this is very disappointing. I'm not getting anything out of this. This is a funny scene.
Can't say I saw that one.
It's not. I mean, really, they only had one good movie, and then the rest of them are hit and miss. The first one was a classic.
Double Bubble.
Hey, Double Bubble, I'll give you a ride. My cousin and I used to watch that movie all the time, and there's a funny. When Cheech picks him up hitchhiking, he doesn't want him to be part of his life, and he doesn't want him to bring all of his gear along. But his mind changes immediately as soon as Chong compliments him on the interior of his car. He goes, "Wow, this is great. Did you do this yourself?" He goes, "Yeah, I did. Okay."
A kid's favorite scene was when the cop comes along and
Oh.
they're pulled over on the side of the road,
Yeah.
and the entire car is filled with pot smoke. And the cop knocks on the door and they roll down the window. He's, "Hey, man." And the cop gets so fucking stoned from what comes out the window.
That's when they're driving the van that's made out of pot, and part of the back of the van
Catches on
it's
fire.
caught on fire, and it's making pot smoke come up. And the cop leans over and inhales a little bit, and he walks up to the window, and they're looking at him. He goes, "What did you guys want?"
Which reminds me of my favorite local story. You remember this one? The front page, over the fold, Oglethorpe Echo. The guy named Smith, I think. No, it wasn't Smith. It was the one before Smith. That was the sheriff, the kid.
Jason Lowe?
Yes. They confiscate a shit ton of pot in the county. And the front cover has a picture of all the deputies standing around in a semicircle, and in front of them is a pile of pot that is burning on fucking fire.
Well, I had a girlfriend whose stepfather, they all used to live in Florida, and he said that there was a big pot bust and the cops had to burn the pot. Well, they couldn't get the pot burning, so they used gasoline to get the pot going. And he said for like 2 weeks after that, there was this strange gasoline-smelling pot going around the neighborhood. Something I didn't know until
man.
yeah, something I didn't know until I became a big pot smoker is that you can smoke the ashes.
Oh God.
You can smoke the remnants. You think you're done with it, but no, you can still get high off the stuff that's semi-burned at the bottom of the.
What's that stuff the tar part of it?
What you mean? You talking about hash?
Yeah, isn't that basically?
Hash is concentrated cannabis. I don't really know how they do
I
it.
don't either.
I've only had hash once, and it didn't actually get me any higher. It was just a different, more intense kind of high.
Yeah, I had some roommates. They had this small board and a little nail stuck up through it,
right.
and a mason jar that sat on top of it. And I'm like, "What's this for?" "Oh, that's how we let her for hash." And they would put this gob of stuff on the nail and light it, and then they would put the lid on top of it, I guess, or something.
They
would make it.
I'm
would
not
go
really
out,
sure.
And they would take the jar off and.
Well, when I had
something, I don't know.
when I smoked,
I wasn't around for it.
When I smoked hash, we had a pin or something, and stuck it on the end of the pin, and you lit it, and you just sort of like inhaled over the top of it or something. Anyway, I used to live at my grandmother's old house, which is right down the hill from my parents' house, and so I got high on the hash, and I walked up the hill to my parents' house to get some food or something, and as I'm coming back down the hill, I noticed that the trees to either side of me looked like stage props. They looked like they were fake trees. And I'm like, oh wow, that's an interesting effect from the hash. But that's really the only strange thing that happens from it. I don't really know much about it.
Sorry, I'm over here thinking of that Radiohead song. Was it Fake Plastic Trees?
Apparently hash is a big deal. Well, the reason I say that is because on Peep Show they're always talking about hash. I don't know. I guess it's a big deal there.
Have you heard this thing about somebody said something about Kamala would decriminalize pot at a national level?
No, but that's a lot. It's a sensible thing to do.
I know she's pro decriminalization when she was in California, and part of it has to do with the fact that there's just so many petty crimes associated with, drugs, and you just have the justice system overwhelmed.
Well, if I was the president, I would say I want cannabis legalized, and I want it legalized now, because otherwise I'm personally going to pardon each and every person who's busted for cannabis crimes until I get my way. Joe Biden, I think he's a good man. I just think he's been very disappointing as a president because there's so many things he could have done, so much more firm action he could have taken on various issues, and he just hasn't done it.
Well, he did do a lot, as much as he could with the obstructionist Republicans in office. My dad, for example, has been benefiting from the infrastructure bill. They have 300 megabytes per second internet service now, out in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Yeah, but tell them about the hurricane, because we got power and they still didn't have power.
Well, my dad lives out near Washington Wilkes border, and they are on rail EMC. And EMCs are just tiny, and they band together, and they serve areas that are underserved traditionally by larger companies. And so they have to kind of like come to each other's aid and defense. And my dad knew moving out there that it was rural, and so he had the good sense to have a generator installed into his electric panel, and he just flips off the AC, and he flips off the hot water heater, and then the gas generator can pick up the rest of the load. But he lives on a road that is several miles long, and it is a dirt road. And when they lose power, they lose it for days and days on end. My dad lost electric power. He lost landline telephone service. He even lost the Spectrum internet.
Well, I was going to say is they got their power back, but their internet was still out for a while after that, right?
Yeah, and then they finally got their phone back. And around here, the phones are done by Windstream Kinetic, and we have had to wait 2 weeks. 2 weeks. We're 7 miles from Athens, Clarke County, the home of the state university. We've had to wait 2 weeks to get phone and internet service. And my dad was looking at 4 weeks, and they just happened to be in the area. They just happened to come by and fix it. But he has a friend of his that lives a couple miles down the road in Rail proper, and he is now in Atlanta staying with family because he's been told it's going to be weeks before he gets his power back. Apparently, he's surrounded by chicken houses, and chicken houses have priority over the elderly. Fuck that shit.
Yeah, when we have an old folks home across the street from us, and we were just getting so fed up with living without power. I drove over there and asked the guy on duty. I said, "Do you guys have power?" And he's like, "No, we don't." I said, "Well, have you called? Do you know if?" "No, I don't know if my boss has called or not." And but the thing is, it felt cool in there. He opened the door, and I had my head. So maybe they had a generator. I really don't know.
I talked to your sister about that later because your mother's boyfriend is over there.
Yeah.
And she pointed out Medicaid regulations, which is funny given that she doesn't follow basic regulations herself. She pointed out Medicaid regulations require them to have a generator. So they must have had some sort of generator going, even though we couldn't hear it.
Yeah. Because the people next door had a generator going, and it was loud as hell.
It's like
I drove by there.
Semi.
I drove by there because we kept hearing it and hearing it. We're like, well, somebody on the road has a generator going. So I drove by during all this with the window down, and I spotted it. And the thing was monstrous. It was
Back of a truck?
Yeah, it would have like a fairly large sized bed of a truck. It would have filled up the bed.
Yeah.
But
My dad's got like 5,000 watts or something.
was it run on gas?
It runs on gas. And he said it was terrible because he went to station after station after station. He finally found one that had gas, and he had to get the premium ultra stuff for $4 and change a gallon. And he was lucky to find it. And we noticed a lot of pumps were out.
Well, you get better power with the better gas, right? If you use the fancy gas in your...
honey. Now, we noticed a lot of pumps were empty, and we live off of the main road that connects Augusta to Athens. Augusta got hit hard. I know somebody lives in Augusta, and he posted pictures of these giant oak trees down in his neighborhood. He was lucky. He lost some trees, but it didn't hit his house. And he's still without power.
On the last show, did I talk about trying to find a hotel room? I guess I did.
Yeah, that was...
Anyway. Oh, it's been a rough week. Trying to get my sleep back on track. And our supervisor's been on vacation all week, and nobody replaced her. We didn't need a supervisor. It shows you how silly things are. Oh, I want to have a good weekend. I want to do some painting and some drawing, listen to some music.
Did you get that article I sent you about National Postal Mail?
Yeah, I watched it. I didn't think much of it. I thought it was,
But they went out and picketed saying something's got to be done because the mail system is breaking down and we're going to have the election problems and all this kind of stuff. And
I know. I didn't think much of it. I mean, it was, because they're not going to do anything.
they haven't even fired DeJoy.
The Republicans want the system to break down so they can
want
say,
it privatized.
yeah, that's their MO.
That's their answer to everything. Privatize it, privatize it, privatize it. Let us make a buck off of everybody else's misery.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think what else there's to talk about.
Presidential elections in 30-something days.
I really don't want to talk about too much that kind of thing. I was talking about think about more fun topics.
I've been cooking a lot lately.
Yes. Oh, tell them about the fancy cooker. Oh wait, we already mentioned that though, didn't we?
I got an Instant Pot.
It does all these different functions in one thing, and she's been making beans and rice.
Beans.
Lots of beans.
And I made potatoes for you for a potato salad.
Oh, it was
last
good
week.
too.
And those took no time at all. I haven't made whole potatoes because they take so long. This was done in 10 minutes. I was like, what the hell, man? The potatoes were perfectly cooked. I couldn't believe it. And I had Peter pick up some fries, so we're going to try the air fryer on those this week, too.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I want some crisp seasoned french fries. Num, num, num.
So, well, you can show me when it happens. I don't want
What?
to. How it works. I mean, how does this air frying thing work?
It's magic.
It's magic.
It's
I didn't know
magic.
that.
It's science. Science I cannot explain.
Well, I don't know. We might have to do a second episode of this weekend because
All right.
my brain's in a fog. I can't think of anything else happy to think about instead of boring, depressing politics and climate catastrophe. Oh.
All right, love. Well.
Okay, let me hold on. Let me check the time. 32 minutes. That's not bad. All right, sweetie pie. We will do this again soon.
All right. Love you.
Love you too. Bye, everybody.